Good morning, everyone. I know we'll be joined by council members as their significant meeting is just ending, so we're going to be doing some transition. But in the interest of time, as we publish this meeting, and we've invited so many staff to be dedicated to this, we're going to be able to begin. This is the Public Works Department budget hearing that we're having as part of the annual budget committee. I'm John Quincy, the chair of the committee, joined at the moment by Councilmember Andrew Johnson, and will be, as I said, joined by others as we proceed. No quorum is needed, so this is an informational budget presentation, but it will give us an opportunity to ask questions and for you to introduce the tremendous investment we're about to be making in the Public Works Department. So this is Mr. Kotke, please begin.
Mr. Chair. Yes, my name is Steve Kotke. I'm the Director of Public Works and the City Engineer. So today I'm going to be presenting the Mayor's recommended 2016 budget for Public Works. I think basically we are very supportive of this budget recommendation and really take no exceptions. So what I'll be doing, I will wrap this up before noon. I'll manage my time to make sure that we're wrapped up before noon. And we'll hit some just organizational charts and kind of overview funding of the entire department initially. And then we'll get into the general fund programs. And following that will be both the enterprise funds, internal service funds, and touching on what I call the capital operating fund programs. I'd like to start out by just introducing our staff. This is our organizational chart. In Public Works, we have 8 operating divisions, and we've divided the department into what we call business lines. We have our business administration, which includes fleet operations. We have our utility business line and our transportation business line. I know that both of you are very familiar with our staff, our executive team in Public Works, but for those watching, I'd like to introduce the people in our organization that lead these different divisions. So let me start out with Heidi Hamilton. Heidi is our Deputy Director of Public Works. And then Brett Jelly. Brett is the Director of Administration. And then someone that's not with us today is John Sharpbillig, who is our fleet director. His son is getting married today, so I thought that was a good enough excuse for him not to show up. And then Glenn Garretts, who is our director of water treatment and distribution. David Herberholtz, our director of solid waste and recycling. Lisa Cerny, our director of surface water and sewers. And then Don Elwood, our Director of Transportation Engineering and Design. Mike Kennedy, who is our Director of Transportation Maintenance and Repair. And John Borges, who is our Director of Traffic and Parking Services. And then Jenny Hager, our new Director of Transportation Planning and Programming. There has been some questions in the past, in the recent past, about just FTEs and increase in FTEs in the various departments. So I wanted to insert this slide just to give a kind of reflection of the number of staff or FTEs that we have in the department. So you can see from 2015, we're not increasing the staff at all with this recommended budget. We have had a slight increase in employees over the last couple of years. Most of that increase is associated with, about half of it is associated with the organics program that we're rolling out. We're going to be adding staff to handle that service. And then about the other half is more associated with capital work and some of the increases that with creating the new division of transportation planning and programming. Just interestingly, when we were putting this together, I did take a look back to kind of give you a sense. I think back in the early 2000s, our FTE count was probably closer to like 1,200 FTEs. So we have reduced the number of people over the last 10 years.
Mr. Kotke, you note in the footnote there that this is for the operating departments. are there others that are not included in the slide that have changed or anything?
Yeah, it's a really good question, especially in our capital area. And I'm looking over the people who actually are what I call more seasonal or in the capital area. Are they included in these FTE counts? Okay, so this does not account for our people, for example, doing street construction work.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So this is the mayor's recommended 2016 budget for our expense budget overall for all funds within Public Works. We operate out of 15 funds in Public Works, so it's a bit complicated, but you can see that the enterprise funds make up most of our expense budget. The other thing that I wanted to point out, that if you look in your budget book, I think it's on page F197, the total dollar amount's different. It's about $345.8 million. And the reason that I'm showing $335.1 million is in the mayor's recommended budget, there was $10 million placed in for the 10th Avenue Bridge. That got put into our capital operating budget. It actually should be put into the capital, the net debt bond portion. So my understanding is that's going to be transferred over. So this 335.1 is probably a better reflection of our actual expense budget for 2016. Just a couple other things, just maybe to explain the chart. So the enterprise funds, solid waste, recycling, surface water and sewers, parking, water, those are our enterprise funds. And then the special revenue funds is actually the DID in West Broadway, so those special service districts. Unlike our other special service districts, this actually flows through. So that 6.2 million is associated with the DID. It's a pass-through. Then, of course, our internal service funds are fleet, lab work, traffic stores. And then in the capital project portion, that's our operating capital project. So that's kind of the engineers, a lot of the people that work in Don Elwood's organization.
Thank you. Mr. Conkey, before you flip the slide, this gives us a little opportunity to introduce the additional council members who have been able to join us. Councilmember Cano, Councilmember Goodman, Council Vice President Glidden, Councilmember Palmisano, and the Chair of the Public Works or Transportation Public Works Committee, Councilmember Reich.
All right, thank you. So this is our the mayor's recommended 2016 budget for revenue in Public Works overall. If you were to do the comparison between our revenue budget and our expense budget, you'll notice that the revenue budget is higher. And the primary reason for that is in the enterprise area, the revenue is higher because this also covers both debt service and capital expenditures. And those types of expenditures are not reflected in our expense budget. So that's really the reason for the difference between those two. So let me jump into our general fund. These next two slides, both slide 8 and slide 9, are really kind of a high-level summary of our general fund budget and the programs and the associated enhancements, and also a comparison with 2015. So I'm going to walk through these fairly quickly, but in later slides I'll be going through each one of these in more detail, so there'll be further explanation. But these two slides are kind of a good reference if you need to kind of check back in on just general recommendations for budgets and all of our programs. So let me just walk through this real quickly and primarily just focus in on some of the enhancements, which we'll talk about a bit later. In our street lighting, where we do have a $400,000 enhancement request. That's a one-time request. The traffic, we'll call it non-general fund component is listed separately here, but in traffic we have about a $71,000 ongoing enhancement. In the Malls and Plaza program, that's probably one of our larger enhancement requests. It's $226,000, which we'll explain in a later slide. Surface transportation and management program, a $75,000 one-time enhancement, and then transportation planning and programming. We actually have two enhancement requests here. One is one-time for $360,000, and then the other is ongoing, which is $174,000.
Mr. Cockey, we have a question from Council President Johnson, who's joined us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the, Mr. Cockey, on the surface transportation management, it looks like in 2015 you had a $2.9 million budget out of the general fund there, but the recommendation is for $2 million, so almost $1 million cut there. So that $75,000 enhancement doesn't look so great. What's the reason for that discrepancy there?
Mr. Chair, Councilmember Johnson, I'm assuming the question is why the drop in.
Yeah.
Let me, when we get to that area, I'll take a look at it. My assumption would be is we probably had a one-time enhancement last year, and so I guess we. What's it? Oh, okay. It was associated with the creation of the Transportation Planning and Programming Division, and we moved some people from that area into our new program.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi.
Okay, so that's reflected then on the next one there where you had a big bump there then. 2.4, 375 to 2.4.
Right.
Okay, okay. Thanks.
All right. Okay, so this is our overall general fund expenditure budget in Public Works. As has been in past years, our snow and ice control is the largest program element that we have in our general fund, and followed by street maintenance and then traffic.
Mr. Cockey, does this slide that you're showing right now, does that include the $10 million fund balance that's used for the 10th Avenue Bridge?
Mr. Chair, no, it doesn't. I believe that increase was showing up in our capital operating budget in the overall budget. So I think if you looked at our overall expenses, it's indicated there, but not in our general fund portion.
Ms. Christensen, is that?
Yes, I believe that's correct, Chair Quincy.
Okay.
I wanted to show this slide. What this is all the programs that we have in our general fund in Public Works. The blue or the lighter blue is our expenses in each one of those programs. And the, I guess I'll refer to it as purple, is our revenue source. But this is revenue sources other than property taxes and LGA. And the reason I think this is kind of important to see is that in the Public Works General Fund budget, in that $57 million budget, expense budget, we have revenues from other sources other than property taxes and LGA that make that up. So you can see that, for example, that I guess snow and street maintenance and so forth, we rely very much on what I call the general funds from property taxes. But when you get into areas like, for example, our ramps, our parking ramp maintenance, that's 100% backed by revenue from the parking fund. yeah, and some of these other revenue sources come from things like municipal state aid, license and permits, utility cut revenue that we get for the work we do on utility cut repairs. The other thing I just wanted to point out on this is, so over the years that when we have had to, make general fund budget cuts, those cuts are typically more in the areas where you see that are more reliant on property tax and LGA funding. So let me get into the specifics now. So the Malls and Plazas program, which is in the Transportation Maintenance and Repair Division, we're requesting a $1.8 million expenditure budget. And malls and plazas, a good portion of the work we do, we have about 199 acres. They're usually smaller parcels throughout the city that we are responsible for doing, mowing and picking up litter and collection and just general landscape maintenance. The other thing that we do out of this fund, though, is we've been taking care of our bike off-street bike trail system. And so the enhancement request that we have here is associated with our bike system. So one of the things that we've been able to do is make some great progress on our bike infrastructure in the city over the last year, and both with protected bikeways, and this is tied into our newly adopted protected bikeway master plan. And so a lot of those, what we call tier 1 projects, we're making headways on those. We completed about 4.3 miles of those this past year. And what the enhancement request is about, one, doing the appropriate level of maintenance on those systems, sweeping and cleaning and snow removal. Then the other thing that we were interested in doing is it's for bike lanes, having bike lanes properly maintained is probably even more important than having to maintain at a higher level than just our street system is important. Having sand and debris and so forth in bike lanes is more of a hazard for our bicycling community than our streets for automobiles. So what the proposal that we're putting forward is that we would like to move our level of service for sweeping on the both the bike lanes and shared lanes and boulevards, bike boulevards, to a once a week sweeping. And this is a goal that we're setting. We think it's achievable, and this enhancement would make up a portion of those expenses as well. As I mentioned earlier, our snow and ice control program, which is in transportation maintenance repair, is our largest program budgetarily in the general fund. 13.3 million is what we're requesting for 2016. We have a 2.6 revenue budget. Some of that is associated with MSA and revenue from other sources. Maybe just to go over the basics here. This budget's always a bit challenging to set. We keep track of historically what we've spent in snow and ice control. Over the years, as you know, the amount of snow we get over in the wintertime varies quite a bit. But this is based on kind of an average over 5 years on the amount of expenses. And it seems to work out fairly close. And if we have a year that we have little snow, obviously we'll run under, and if we have years that we have heavy snows, obviously we'll run over and rely on reserve funds for covering those expenses. The street maintenance and repair program is also in Transportation and Maintenance Repair Division. We have about a $10 million expenditure budget request. We have about a $5 million revenue budget, and that's due, as I mentioned before, both to MSA, but we have, when we do utility cut repairs, that is also a revenue source that we get reimbursed for. In this program, we do pothole patching and repair. We do the preventive maintenance work that's identified, and then, as I mentioned before, our utility cut restoration. In the last few years, a lot of utility work is being done, so that's keeping us very, very busy. The Bridge Maintenance and Repair Program in Transportation Maintenance Repair Division, we have a request for $3 million. And we focus in on about 193 city-owned bridges. We actually have more bridges than that in the city that we get involved in more on the inspection end of things, which I'll speak to later. But the purpose of the Bridge Maintenance Repair Program is to provide basic maintenance and repair services for these vehicle, pedestrian, and other bridges. They also provide support services for our bridge inspection and construction units that are actually in the Transportation Engineering and Design Division. Ramp Maintenance and Repair Program, which is in Transportation Maintenance and Repair. And as I mentioned earlier, the purpose of the Ramp Maintenance Repair Program is to provide maintenance repair to our 17 parking ramps that we have in the city. 13 of them are city-owned parking ramps. 3 are the state-owned. Those are our TAD ramps, A, B, C. And then we have 1 privately owned city-operated parking ramp as well. So the primary focus of this group is to do the maintenance and repairs for those structures. A lot of it is both cleaning, getting the salt and debris off the decks of the ramps, but that we also do concrete repair as well, and caulking and sealing. This group also works with property services. The people with the skill sets that we have in this particular program are also helpful for property services to do repairs on city buildings, so they assist in that as well. Special Service District program, which is managed out of Transportation Maintenance and Repair as well. And I want to distinguish this because this is the 14 special service districts that we have throughout the city. These are pass-through dollars, so you can see that the expenditure budget of about $1.6 million is the same as our revenue budget of $1.6 million. And so these are what we call city-managed special service districts. And I want to just make the distinction. Earlier I had mentioned that, for example, the DID and West Broadway, which are self-managed special service districts, we handle those different from financially. The street lighting program, now this is in the Traffic and Parking Services Division. This is, the program summary is basically to operate and maintain the existing streetlight system in the city of Minneapolis. I think you're all familiar with the streetlights that we have in Minneapolis. This is the program that certainly pays for the electricity of all those streetlights, but a good portion of those streetlights are actually owned by Excel. So you can see on the slide here, about 28,000 of them are Excel, and those are the wood poles. So that's probably kind of the easiest way to distinguish what is a Excel-owned streetlight. And then there's 20,000 city streetlight poles, and those are typically metal poles. This program pays for both the electrical cost, but also the maintenance and repair of these streetlights. So the enhancement request that we have here is the acceleration of the LED streetlight program. So we are in the process right now of converting the city-owned streetlights, a good portion of them, to LEDs. And I think our current program now is about $200,000 a year. This has a great payback. We have about a 3.5-year payback on this. And so the idea is, since we have such a short payback period on this, let's accelerate the program and try to get more streetlights converted over to LEDs faster. And so this is a request for $400,000 that would be added on to the dollars that we currently have in our budget.
Mr. Kaki, I wonder if you might be able to provide a little more detail on how much this might save us actually in operating costs going forward in terms of in dollar value.
Yeah, well, let me just maybe talk about this amount, the $400,000. The $400,000 will allow us to do, I think, about close to 900 additional streetlights next year, and the savings from that would be about $112,000 per year just for that amount.
Great, thank you.
So the traffic program in Traffic and Parking Services Division, we have a $9.8 million expenditure request, and we have about a $3.7 million revenue budget. This is the program that really operates and maintains the signals and traffic signals, the traffic signs, the pavement markings throughout the entire city. The additional request here of $71,000, this enhancement is tied very kind of similar to the enhancement I talked before regarding our bike system, and that we are making some great headway on expanding our bike system and putting in protected bikeways, and this will require just more street markings. And so the bulk of this request is just associated with pavement markings and delineators associated with our bike facilities. So the Surface Transportation Management Program, which is in our Transportation Engineering and Design Division, spoke about this a bit earlier, that we've moved some people from this division over to our new division. But within the general fund portion of this division, and maybe I'll just speak about that a little bit. This is Don Elwood's group. So in Don Elwood's group, we have a portion that are paid for by general fund, but a good portion of his people are actually in what we call the 4100 fund or the capital fund. But this is the general fund portion of Mr. Elwood's budget. And it includes bridge inspection, right-of-way permitting, asset management, and so forth. I'm sorry, not asset management, but special assessment work. One of the enhancements that we're requesting here is $75,000. This is really directed specifically to our bridge inspections. We found that we needed some additional dollars to hire really consultants, professional engineers who specialize in bridges to really help us diagnose the specific issues that we have with bridges a little bit earlier on, to really understand, do we have a restoration issue? Do we have just a repair issue? Do we have a replacement issue? So these dollars here will be directed primarily to be hiring an outside structural engineer to assist us in some of that evaluations. The Transportation Planning and Programming program in our Transportation and Planning Division. This is the division that we created last year. And as I mentioned previously, that they do a variety of work, long-range transportation planning and capital improvement. Our entire capital improvement plan, 5-year plan, is managed out of this division. Submittals to CLIC. Partnerships with public agencies. This is the group that works with, we have a lot of projects within the city that we need to be working on jointly with Hennepin County, MnDOT, Metro Transit. So this is the group that's primarily working on those projects, at least particularly early on, and doing a lot of community engagement work on transportation projects. One of the things that we're really focusing in on more, and we want to focus in on more on, is the issue of asset management and really understanding, better understanding the condition, particularly, of all of our infrastructure throughout the city, but this group is particularly focusing in on our street infrastructure. And so the enhancement request that we have here, it's a $360,000 one-time. But let me clarify this. This is really about hiring a contractor or consultant who specializes in doing pavement analysis, and they have a special vehicle that drives through and can do condition assessment of the pavements, and we do this once every 4 years. So even though this says it's a $360,000 one-time, 4 years from now, either I or someone else will be probably coming forth and asking for the same request. So I just want to make sure that that's understood. This is a one-time, but it will be reoccurring about once every 4 years. This is a shift in how we do asset management for streets. Previously, we actually use summer people to go out and do evaluation of our street systems. We could do maybe 25 to maybe 33% of the city at a time. So it'd take us maybe 3 to 4 years at the most to get the data in that we need. This approach here, I think it's probably more common in the industry now, and we think that the information we're going to get here will really help us better do the analysis that we need to do on our streets. And so what does that mean? Well, we use this type of information to determine when streets either need to be seal coated or resurfaced or reconstructed. Really, that information really helps us develop our capital program. But this information also is really going to also help us in looking at some long-term strategies of where we want to go with our infrastructure on our streets. So this is something we're obviously very supportive of, and we think that it's well worth the investment.
We have a comment highlight probably from Councilmember Reich on this particular slide.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think you've articulated well the advantages we hope to gain from this reorganization that both speak to interdepartmental efficiencies, also external activities that will be enhanced by this with our department partners and, of course, external partners. But I think there's also a hope for a bottom line benefit in terms of planning in this particular fashion in advance. We've had examples of it ad hoc in the past, but hopefully we're trying to take advantage of it on a more continuous basis, and perhaps you can touch on that, particularly in light of one of your previous charts where it shows how much outside revenue we need to get the work done that we need to get done.
Mr. Chair, Councilmember Reich, yes, with this entire division, I mean, there's a number of reasons we created it. One is to do, I wouldn't say do more community engagement, but do earlier community engagement so that we're really understanding the scope of the projects that we are going to be moving forward on. Another aspect of that as well is we apply for federal funding quite a few years in advance for projects, and to better understand, once again, the scope of what we're applying for so that when the federal funding does come available, that it matches very closely into the intent of the project. This, as I mentioned earlier also, this group works very closely with other agencies, both at Met Council as well as at both the state and Hennepin County level, to ensure that the projects that we're proposing are being coordinated with the work that they're doing. So let me continue on this. I didn't get to the second enhancement. We have a $174,000 ongoing enhancement request for both professional services and what we refer to as partnerships. So what this is for is, once again, this group gets involved very much in a lot of studies throughout the city. And I think pretty much in every ward, there's a request for traffic studies, analysis of transportation issues that we have in the various wards. Some of these dollars will just help offset the expense of hiring consultants to assist us with that analysis. It also will help us with, for example, there's some dollars in here for Bike Week. Bike Week is something that the city very much supports, and we have dollars identified in here to help fund some of the cost of Bike Week. And there's also, we have some membership fees. For example, the Northern Lights Express, Passenger Rail Alliance, and Streetcar Coalition. These are not real large dollar amounts, but these are important organizations to belong to, and these dollars here will help cover the expenses of those memberships. All right, and I think our last general fund program that I wanted to mention is just our administration. This is our myself and Heidi and Brett work out of the administration program in Public Works. But the administration program actually does a lot more work than just administration. We're very involved in the departments, for example, safety and training. You can see what we just recently, the photo there with the on the bridge, we just worked with the fire department and the emergency operations group on doing rescues out of the river. And so we do our safety training and finance oversight is handled out of this administration group. So that is kind of wraps up the general fund component of Public Works, and I'll be moving on to the enterprise funds, unless there's any questions back on the general fund. All right, well, I think we're doing good from a time perspective. So enterprise funds, this is the enterprise funds within Public Works. You can see that they're all large organizations. They generally, dollar-wise, are somewhat equal amongst all 5 of them. So let me walk through and start with solid waste and recycling division. As you know, in solid waste and recycling, we provide services for what we call our residential buildings in the city, which are 4 units and smaller. So just for perhaps those watching and listening, so the city provides solid waste and recycling services for our residents, 4 units and below. Units larger than that are handled by the private sector. And this includes collection and disposal of solid waste and collection of recyclable materials. And of course, now we're rolling out our organics collection. Just real quickly on that, we're just wrapped up what we call phase 1 of our citywide organics process. I think we have about 31% sign up, which is about 33,000 households. So that's we're pretty impressed with that, and we'll continue to work on getting more households signed up. And then we'll be rolling into phase 2 of our organics collection next spring, and including that, I think hopefully by June, David, was that the idea? So hopefully we'll be fully implemented of our organics system by June of next year. We do have one enhancement request here, and it is a general fund enhancement request, and it's for $50,000. And And we decided that this would just be a one-time request. But this has more to do with the city's initiatives associated with towards zero waste. And that our solid waste and recycling division, so the revenue sources that we get for this entire division come from the fees that we charge our residential customers for solid waste and recycling services. But the Towards Zero Waste initiatives are really a citywide program that would benefit everybody in the city of Minneapolis. So we thought it'd be more appropriate that this would be, that component of the work of their work would be a general fund supported program. So some particulars, you can see the council adopted 2015 budget compared to the 2016 mayor recommended. Somewhat very similar, a little bit less in the associated FTEs. So the 2016 budget fully funds the implementation of the organics program, and I'll probably speak to this on the next slide here about how the organics program impacted rates. This budget also does include dollars for a new maintenance facility for our solid waste group, solid waste and recycling group. They're currently up at a facility at 2710 Pacific. It's right along the river, and it's an older facility. It has been declared that it needs to be replaced. Our concerns with actually replacing it on that site, this is right along the river, and that at some point in the future, we'd love to be able to see the parkway and the land along the river improved. So we did not want to build a building on that particular portion. So we are exploring other sites right now for a new facility for our solid waste and recycling group. So here are the proposed rates. We put them usually in a 5-year plan, but obviously the rate that you're adopting would be the 2016 rate. Wanted to explain this a bit, that the rollout of our new organics collection system, we phase that in really over a couple of years. So the rate increase that we saw in 2015, and then you can see that the rate increase for 2016 is a bit higher at 4.9%. That will cover the entire cost of rolling out the organics program. The other thing that really assisted us in rolling out the organics program is we did have a fund balance that allowed us to use some of the dollars out of that fund balance to help offset the expenses associated with rolling out the organics program, such as purchasing additional trucks and so forth.
Mr. Kaki, Council President Johnson has a comment. Question.
Mr. Kaki, can you go back to the slide before this, please? Mm-hmm. So the mayor's recommending a decrease in the adopted budget of $400,000. Why would we increase people's rate if we've cut the budget?
As I was mentioned before, I believe, staff can feel free to jump in and add to this, but in 2015, we asked for additional dollars, but some of that was actually spending our fund balance. So it wasn't necessarily associated directly with the rate. It was associated with, it's an expenditure budget, and even if we're using it out of our fund balance, we still need an appropriation for that expenditure. So that is really, I think, the difference between the two is that the pro forma indicates that we would need the rate increase that we're recommending, and the reason that it was dropped was as we were rolling out of the organics program in 2015, we're using fund balance.
Didn't we raise the rates in 15 though too?
We did.
Okay, I want to know that number.
Would you be able to provide that? Do you have the number from 2014 to 2015?
I can provide that number to you here. This is you can see on this slide, we do have the dollar amount for the 2015, but the The rate increase was significant in 2015. Pardon me? Right, yep. So we can show you.
So it's probably I mean, if it's 4.9 is 18.
We had an 18% increase from 2014 to 2015.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I sure am glad I voted against that.
Okay, moving on to our water treatment and distribution division. I think pretty all familiar with the basic services we provide. We have 2 treatment plants and about 1,000 miles of pipe throughout our system. We sell water not just to the residents and people who live and work in Minneapolis, but to 7 other cities, including the airport. So this is our proposed budget for 2016. Some of the things I just wanted to mention is that a lot of our focus right now up at water in the probably a good portion of the rate increase that you're seeing from 2015 to 2016 is associated with capital improvements. We have an aggressive capital program, both primarily on the treatment facilities, but also on the distribution system as well. One of the things that we're obviously focusing very heavily on throughout the department, but also in water, is asset management. We're implementing the rollout of an asset management program called Maximo. We're continuing to invest in really evaluating what we call the condition assessment of our system. One of the things that we've just concluded recently, we were able to actually go out throughout our entire distribution system and do an analysis of the condition of our pipes and are they leaking. And we're about 3/4 the way through, Glenn. We're about 3/4 the way through testing. And what we have found surprisingly, and very surprisingly compared to other cities, is that the amount of leakage that we have in our distribution system is very, very minimal. So we're quite pleased with that, given particularly the age of our system. This is the 5-year recommendation for raise, and once again, you would be acting on the 2016 rate. And as I mentioned earlier, the 4% increase is primarily due to capital expenses associated with the Fridley maintenance or the Fridley treatment plant. We also do have dollars in here for a new facility for our water distribution facility, as well as some improvements up at our Columbia Heights treatment facility. Sanitary sewer. So we are sanitary sewers in our surface water and sewers division. The primary focus here is to really do capital maintenance work on our 800 plus miles of sanitary sewer pipe in the city. Just maybe for the audience listening, so in the city of Minneapolis, it's our responsibility to collect sanitary sewage, but then we send it down to the Met Council's plant for treatment. So this is all about collection. Besides just sanitary pipes, we have 5.5 miles of sanitary tunnels and pump stations. The other thing I wanted to mention here is that about 75% of our sanitary budget, so of this recommended $59.9 million for 2016, About 75% of that is really a payment to MedConsul for the treatment of our sanitary sewage. So the cost of that we are charged by MedConsul for that treatment is the primary factor on the rates that we charge for our sanitary sewage fees.
Mr. Kaki, I was just kind of looking at this a little bit. I'm seeing that it assumes a 5.5 Met Council rate increase. Obviously, the budget was presented or, created over the spring, delivered in August. Is that number accurate? How did we do? 4.8? Okay.
4.8. So, Mr. Chair, let me respond to that a little bit better. So you're absolutely right. This is one of the a little bit challenging parts. As we set our budgets and make recommendations to the mayor back in June, what MedConsul will actually be charging, usually we don't find that out until later in the fall. So this is, a number that we occasionally will actually modify the rate depending on what we discover from MedConsul. But I think that in this year, though, that we would like to stick with the rate that we're recommending here at 6.9% or $24.64 as an average cost.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Just real quick, maybe just to hit on the highlights a little bit more is similar to water. This is Lisa Cerny's group. They are also very much focusing on condition assessment and determining, exactly, what is the condition of our infrastructure so that we can plan repairs and capital improvements accordingly. We have this term in here called supplemental cleaning. What that is really referencing is we're actually taking on a new cleaning activity in our larger sewer pipes, which typically we hadn't done before, hadn't need to do before. But due to a lot of low flows that we're seeing in some of these larger pipes, it's requiring us to go in and do some additional cleaning that we haven't done in the past. Expound on that a little bit. The reason for that is, so years ago, we used to have a combined system. So some of these pipes were very large to handle both storm and sanitary. And then as we've divided that system up and we have our own storm sewer system, we have our own sanitary system, the amount of actually water flowing through these pipes have decreased. And then, of course, over the years, one of the things we've worked very, very hard on is to try to get what we call the clean water, the storm water, out of our sanitary system. And they've made some great progress on that. And that's good. But what that also means is we have a little bit less flow going through some of these very large pipes, which is causing more collection of debris and so forth. So we're having to do more cleaning on some of those large pipes than we used to. So this is the rates that we're recommending for 2016 and beyond. And as long as maybe just touch on again, MedConsul is, so, probably the rates through 2017 through 2020 will be dependent, of course, on MedConsul's rates that they will be charging the city. Our stormwater program, which is also in Surface Water and Sewers Division. Obviously, the intent here is to manage our both the quantity of our stormwater for avoiding flooding, but also to try to improve the quality of that water before it dumps into our lakes and streams. It's very much a capital and maintenance activities associated with both pipes, and obviously we also have a lot of stormwater tunnels, which have been probably one of our bigger challenges over the years. One of the things that you'll see here, I'll just jump into the next slide here, is that this is our budget for stormwater collection. The other thing that we do in our stormwater budget is we pay for street cleaning, because one of the primary purposes of doing our street cleaning is to make sure that the water that runs off the streets into the catch basins and into our lakes and streams are clean. So that's the primary purpose of having the street cleaning as part of this funding package. So you can see here that we have a 0% rate increase. And the reason of this is that we have a very healthy fund balance in our stormwater fund. And so we're not recommending any rate increases over the next 5 years. Some of the reasons for the fund balance being where it is associated with our tunnel systems. A few years back, when we did an initial evaluation of our tunnel systems, we had some grave concerns that we had some very, very large expenses associated with repair of our storm tunnels. As we've been doing more work and more investigation on them, the situation has improved. Now, we still have issues with our storm tunnels, but for example, the manner in which we can actually even repair them, we've come up with some better methodologies that are less expensive than what we had previously thought. So the end result of that is that we do have some increases in expenses, which you can see here. We do have an increase in expenses, but we're able to cover that with the fund balance that we currently have. So this is just a summary slide of our utility group and the total what's being proposed for 2016 and the percent change overall. Probably the largest portion of that obviously is associated with the sanitary rate increase for 2016.
Council President Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Kaki, on that, whatever the Met Council, we assumed a 5.5, I think, percent increase. Do we have input into that at all? And other cities are in the same boat as us, obviously. How do we, I mean, that's a bigger than inflation number. How do we react to that?
Mr. Chair, Councilmember Johnson, we do have conversations, and we've talked to them extensively about, can you explain to us what that rate, why they're proposing the rate increase they have, and they have provided us that information. Lisa, would you like to speak a little bit to that and maybe your interaction with the Met Council on rates?
Mr. Chair, Council President Johnson, the Met Council has what they call a public hearing type of meeting about their rates. And this year they did provide a significant amount of detail on why their rate increase. Much of it is tied to capital improvements that they are making on their systems, system-wide, as well as their plants.
So we're still
Subsidizing for
funding their overbuilding.
The way
that's why I remember it coming in front of us, but whatever. You don't have to comment on that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's helpful.
Thank you. All right. The next enterprise group we have is our parking system. Obviously, we separate this out differently than our utilities, just from the fact that our enterprises are funded through monthly bills. Obviously, parking is through charges at the ramps and meters. Let me just speak kind of generally. I was just having this conversation with finance the other day as we were looking at the parking fund and the parking system performance. Is that the system is actually performing quite well. A few years back, we had some concerns that the trend in the parking fund was going down, and we had some concerns. I think some of that was associated with the economy, and our parking system is very much reliant on what's happening with our economy and the trends going on downtown. But it's it's a robust economy, and things are going well, and so our parking ramps are performing quite well. We have also, over the years, have moved to technologies now that have lowered some of our expenses in operating the parking ramps. Obviously working on improving, both customer service, but really that continued focus on technology. Some of the initiatives that we have going on is the car sharing pilot, which we've taken to the next phase. And so we'll be returning actually to Transportation and Public Works Committee October 27th, I believe, to update the council on where we're going to be going with the car sharing program over the this next year. Our pay by phone system, which allows you to access parking meters through your phone. We have a pilot running in the North Loop neighborhood right now. And John, if I understood this correct from your communicate to me the other day, the pilot we were going to actually roll it out in 3 phases, but the pilot has worked out so well that we're actually going to change that just really into, once the pilot's completed, rolling it out citywide. We feel we don't need to do a second pilot or in a bigger area, that we're comfortable that the program's working well enough, so we'll be rolling it out citywide here, I think by the end of the year. Is that right? So that's exciting.
Mr. Kaka, you mentioned how new technologies were really helpful in controlling and reducing costs of operations in lots and other things. I assume what you're talking about now is somehow these new technologies are helping increase revenues to support those enterprise funds. Is that a fair assessment? And can you quantify how revenues are doing since the advent of the new technology?
Let me talk about, obviously, one of the big technology changes that we made in the past few years is the new parking meters themselves, and going to the multi-space parking meters that accept credit cards. And so we've seen a very large jump in revenues in the on-street parking system over the last few years where we implemented that. Let's see if my numbers are correct here. I think we had somewhere from like a $7.5 million in 2011 up to about $12.7 million in 2015. So a substantial jump in revenues on our on-street parking meter systems with the implementation of our new parking meters. What I do know is that that is leveling out. That is really where we were just evaluating our revenue streams and our system for 2015, and that seems to stabilize, which I think makes sense. Now, I guess the question is with, for example, the pay by phone is, will we see any kind of increase in revenues from that, or is that just going to be kind of a customer service component? At this point, I think it's hard to say, but we'll certainly know next year once we roll that out.
Yeah, thank you.
Just one last initiative that is on the slide I do want to mention is we very much intend to make facility improvements at our impound lot this next year. This has been very much long in the waiting here. It's very, very, very much needed. The people who have to get down to the impound lot, especially in the wintertime during snow emergencies, do not have the facilities that we should be providing them. And so we will be making improvements. I'm not sure the details of that, but we're working through that process currently. So here's a breakdown of our on-street parking expense budget recommendations for 2016, both in on-street, off-street, and also the impound lot. You can see actually there's a slight decrease in the total.
Is there a change in the FTEs, either up or down?
I do not believe that there's any change in FTEs. I know there isn't overall in Public Works, and John, I don't believe that there's any, particularly in the parking system. Okay. So we're near the end here, and let me just touch on our internal service funds. So fleet services, as I mentioned earlier, this is the fleet service division is managed by John Sharpelig, our fleet director. We manage the acquisition and maintenance of all the city's vehicles. This includes police, fire, public works. So all city vehicles are maintained in this division. We also provide fuel for city vehicles through this division. Assuming you're all familiar with our general location, our general fleet facility is out at 1200 Curry. Well, so it's just on the other side of the west side of downtown there near the ballpark. And then we have another facility that takes care of what we call a little bit of lighter fleet and a lot of the police fleet, and that's at our Royalston maintenance facility, which is also in that same general location. But we do have kind of branch facilities throughout the city. So here's the budget recommendations for our fleet. We have it divided into fleet management, our field coordination, and fleet maintenance operations. One of the things I just want to mention and perhaps remind you is we had gone through actually a really significant change in the budget in this area over the last few years. And the reason for that is previously all of what I refer to as our drivers and operators in Public Works. These are the people who operate heavy equipment and drive snowplow trucks and those type of things, used to be all housed in this division. And then what we would do is build them out to other divisions as needed. When we switched over to a new classification called Public Works Service Workers, we consolidated all those and then moved them permanently into the divisions that they mostly work out of. So a good portion of the employees that used to be in our fleet operation now is actually in Mike Kennedy's area, transportation maintenance repair, but we've also moved some throughout into other divisions as well. That seems to be working very well on a number of different levels. One of them is just plainly, I think the employees feel like they have a home now. They have the base, and they like that stability. So that program is working out very well.
I wonder if we could talk real quick before you advance the slide. How do we address the issue of vehicle replacements? Where in the budget does that appear?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, capital replacement. So this is the group that, purchases the vehicles. So what they do is for a vehicle, we determine the length of time that we believe that we're going to need, or that the life cycle on that vehicle when it needs to be replaced, and they calculate out a rate for a monthly rate, and they charge that to the department who's utilizing it. So as an example, the police department. So there's a kind of a charge per vehicle to the police department, so that we're bringing in revenue to have the capital expenditures to replace that vehicle when it needs to be replaced. Now, what we did a few years ago is the CARS program really helped us kind of better identify that. So there's a couple of categories here. That system works really well for replacement of vehicles in our system. But when we have departments that need new vehicles, so it's an expansion of the system, we wanted to be able to deal with that, and our new car system really allows us to better manage and keep track of that, what is a replacement vehicle and has already been accumulating funds to replace it versus what is a new vehicle, and therefore we need additional funding to replace that capital or spend that capital on that new vehicle.
So that's different than maybe in the past where they're kind of one-offs, spikes showing up in a click at capital expenditure. It's helped us do a little bit more planful replacement and new equipment. Is that a fair assessment
Mr. Chair,
of the benefits of that system?
Yeah, actually, it's helped considerably. We in the fleet operation, we always had a challenge with additional units coming into the fleet because technically we haven't been charging for that and covering that in our fund. So the bottom line is it both helps manage kind of the request in an orderly fashion, but it's also very helpful for just managing the fund and the balance and doing the pro forma because there's more certainty on what we need to replace.
Yeah, thank you.
Another internal service fund that operation that a couple of them programs that you may not be as familiar with is we have one referred to as construction management. Construction management is actually in Mr. Elwood's transportation design and engineering and design division. This is a group that really helps manage construction projects throughout the city. So they coordinate all the construction and they do the lab testing and so forth, ordering of the concrete, asphalt, those types of things. And then also our traffic stores. So this is a store operation for our traffic operations, signals, poles, those types of things. And of course, with all of our internal service funds, all of the dollars that fund these are through chargebacks. So there is really no general fund dollars directly going into internal service funds. It's all through a chargeback system. And the last area that I wanted to touch on today, and I'm going to define this a little bit better. This is what I call capital operating programs. So this is not our capital debt service or our capital net debt bond program. This is our capital operating program. And this is broken into surface transportation capital and sidewalks. So surface transportation capital, which is the largest of the two, this is actually, once again, Don Elwood's group. This is all of our engineers that you've met quite frequently, and they work out of the 4100 fund, but we do identify them as a capital operating expense, so we do get an appropriation, an authority to spend for their expenses, and the revenue that comes in that pays for this is charged back to capital projects. So, but that chargeback typically doesn't happen until the project actually goes into construction. So for example, we do design work on a project 2, 3, sometimes 4 years prior to the project actually going into construction. And then once it goes into construction, those dollars are then reimbursed back for those expenses.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Is this different than the net debt bond funded construction costs? Are they showing up elsewhere?
The net debt bond capital program, I think it's in the appendix here, but that's just our capital program. So okay. And I think Mr. Ablin hit that in a previous meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
So it is different, yes. And then just the second one is our sidewalk group. This is our sidewalk inspectors and the sidewalk replacement program. And it's kind of a similar that this is paid for out of in the 4100 fund, but it's an operating element of our sidewalk group. And the special revenue fund, this one's pretty straightforward. This is our DID, our Downtown Improvement District. And this is, dollars literally that we do the assessment for the downtown improvement district. The dollars flow through us, and then we reimburse the DID for the expenses that they incur. So that concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to be answering any questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kaki, just kind of scanning the desk. Okay, Councilmember Goodman has a comment.
I have a comment, if that's okay.
Sure.
I just wanted to commend your staff for the incredible work that we've seen out of Public Works this year. I get more compliments about the Public Works Department than all of the other departments in the city combined, especially given the Southwest LRT project and project office not responding. Public Works employees, I think, have been tremendously responsive. I've also done a lot of work with John Murchis and the impound lot, improving the impound lot, and I'm getting a lot of positive feedback from my constituents about the work on your staff. That's in addition to the solid waste and recycling, snow plowing, street sweeping compliments that we get pretty consistently. And so since you have so many people here, I just want to remind you that the public believes Public Works is one of the most important things that the city does, and the team that you've put together, I think, is just enormously responsible and responsive, and I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that comment. I certainly echo those remarks. It's it represents a significant portion of the budget, and to see that it's being managed so well, so thoughtfully and planfully into the future, and being so responsive, as Councilmember Goodman says, it's remarkable. So, not seeing any additional questions. Oh, I'm sorry. We have President Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to echo my colleagues' compliments. I had to, this summer, saw more Public Works activity in Ward 4 than I had seen, I think, since I came on the council. And people did a really good job of a lot of individual projects and, managing the traffic, keeping people safe, keeping the barriers in place, and just really good work. And I actually stopped and complimented the crew that was at the end of my block, because usually one of the biggest complaints I get in the summer is people driving really fast through the neighborhoods. But Public Works did a great job of making sure that that could not happen this summer with all the projects that they had going. So it's good. It's good for people to see their dollars at work, and they sure did this year in the Ward 4. The other thing I should say thank you again, and I hate to pick on Mr. Herberholz, but I think, one of the things that people need to understand about our city is that bill that they get, that utility bill, is becoming darn near as much as they're paying in property taxes to the city. And so, when those rates go up, it affects them. And it's interesting, and I think very few people understand that the sewer charges are somewhat out of our control, and that's a big chunk if you look at your utility bill. But I do think it's incumbent on us always to look at these rates and make sure that we're not getting out of whack with our neighbors, and making sure that we're doing the work efficiently. And I'm convinced Mr. Herberholz's department is one of the most responsive departments in our city, and I always thank him for the great quick work he does in some really challenging circumstances when, people will dump a whole bunch of stuff on somebody's backyard or driveway or whatever. They always take great care about that. So thank you. And again, echo my colleagues. You run a great department, Mr. Kaki. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Bender.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can't resist adding that, in addition to all of this really important day-to-day work that the Public Works Department is doing of maintaining our roads and keeping water and sewer systems running, we are also challenging you to take on a lot of new innovative directions in rethinking how our streets serve our communities. And I have so appreciated the way that Public Works has been able to rethink our bicycle and pedestrian planning, look for opportunities to leverage private investment like we're doing in downtown East, hopefully, continuing that work across the city. And with the new division that Ms. Hager is leading, just really not only continuing to provide these great basic services to our residents, but also looking for ways to go above and beyond, and making sure that we're looking for every single opportunity to make our streets work better for everyone. And so I've really appreciated that balance that you've been able to strike.
Thank you.
We'll keep the hit parade going. How about if we recognize Councilmember Reich?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll keep this brief. I think I'll just echo all the comments and thanks moving forward. You know, as someone who sits on the committee and chairs the committee that sees the day-to-day, week-to-week work, it's nice to step back and say, okay, what's next year look like? And the budget, of course, is sort of the ghost of the machine of what that looks like. And sort of expounding upon what Councilmember Bender said, this is a department that I've come to witness in my term here, both as vice chair and now chair of the committee. It's embedded in your organization and your leadership to learn. I mean, this isn't just how to deliver water, it's how to deliver it better. And you take the steps to do that, make the partnerships to make that happen. And you could go to example. How do we manage our concrete streets? We don't know. Let's figure it out. Let's do a test pilot. And it seems like this is sort of the DNA of this department, to not just do it, but to do it well and to think ahead. And I think that once again, to echo the comment made about the planning division that you created, I think that's an organizational statement that really sort of reflects something that's been there always in your DNA as an organization, but now it'll be very explicit. So I look forward to that work.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like to remind my colleagues, we have there's an appendix or two to this report that provides a little additional detail. Questions are always welcome to both Mr. Kaki and Ms. Christensen as we work through the budget process. Coming up on October 8th is our next budget hearing. It's with CPED and Regulatory Services Department. October 16th is the Internal Audit Department, and October 22nd is a series of public hearing or department hearings on 911, police, emergency management, and fire departments. That's just sort of a preview, so you can set your TiVo to those meetings. Thank you again for your comments and for your presentation and for ending a half hour early. So, thank you.